Let's go over how do you eat a low-carb diet while still getting enough fiber, enough vitamins, enough nutrients. Like, how do you still eat healthy when you're eliminating so many carbohydrates? Okay, let's say that you're limiting your carbohydrates to 50 net grams for the day. And that's a recommendation I make to a lot of my health coaching clients when I switch them over to a low-carb diet. I think if you eat about 50 net grams of carbs, you can still get enough vitamins and minerals and good nutrition and enough fiber, as long as you're picking the right type of carbohydrates. And the carbs you have to eat are pretty much going to be vegetables like leafy greens, foods that are low in net carbs, high in nutrition, like nutrient-dense type foods, and also high in fiber. Now, quickly, if you don't know what net carbs are just total carbohydrates minus the fiber. So, for example, if you're picking a food that's, say, 25 grams of total carbohydrates, but it has 10 grams of fiber, like the undigestible part of the food, you're going to be left with 15 net grams. Okay, so let's go over a diet that you should be eating if your goal is to keep your net grams under 50 total net grams of carbohydrates. So I would say you want to eat vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower. Like broccoli and cauliflower, like for every cup, only has about 3 or 4 net grams of carbohydrates, but they're loaded with vitamins, minerals, nutrition. They're 2 different colors. You always want to eat a rainbow color of vegetables for different nutrients. They're loaded with fiber. I eat broccoli and cauliflower on a regular basis all during the week. You also want to eat those leafy greens, like you want arugula. Arugula is almost like a free food, incredibly tasty, has that bitter, amazing taste. Like a cup of arugula only has like half a gram of net carbs, incredible. You want to eat a lot of spinach, you want to eat a lot of kale. Same thing, spinach and kale. A cup of spinach, a cup of kale only has maybe 2 or 3 net grams of carbohydrates, loaded with nutrition. Like celery stalk, same thing. Every long celery stalk only has maybe 1 gram of net carbs. Like zucchini, another incredible vegetable to eat. I think it's a medium-sized zucchini, same thing, 3-4 grams of net carbs. And another food which I highly recommend, even though it's a fruit, it's like an avocado. An avocado is like a superfood, like a medium-sized avocado, loaded with potassium, like 700-800 milligrams of potassium. That's another thing you have to be careful of when you're eating a low-carb diet, not getting enough potassium in your diet and not getting enough magnesium. So definitely pick foods that are high in potassium, high in magnesium. Avocado is great. Like a typical avocado may have, say, 17, 18 total grams of carbohydrates, but only has maybe 3 or 4, or maybe 5 net grams of carbs because it has like so much fiber. It has 12, 13 grams of fiber. And why I'm talking like general like that is that, so when you look up like an avocado, it's hard to like know the exact size unless you're like weighing it. I'm talking like a medium-sized avocado. And this is how you have to eat. So for example, if you want to eat, say, 50 net grams of carbs, like say you want to lose weight, you want to improve your health, you're switching over to a low-carb diet, most of your calories are going to come from healthy fats. And where are these healthy fats going to come from? Just the foods you're eating. So for example, you're going to be eating like good quality protein like salmon, you're going to be eating eggs, sardines, the fatty meats. That's where you're going to get the healthy fats from, right? You're going to get all your fiber now from the foods I just talked about. You want to get 25, 30 grams of fiber, even though you're eating low carb, even though you're only eating 50 grams of net carbs. If you pick these leafy greens, if you pick these vegetables, you're going to be getting the fiber, you're going to keep the sugar low, and you'll be keeping the carbs down. And my recommendation for protein is about 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. So for example, if you're 150 pound like guy or gal, say you get 20-25% body fat, you definitely want to eat at least 100 grams of protein, 100, 115, 110 grams of protein, something like that. So this is what your diet should consist of. All your carbs, or like say 75% of your carbs should come from these leafy greens, rainbow color of vegetables. So for example, if you had 5 cups of broccoli, 1 cup of broccoli, 1 cup of cauliflower, 1 cup of spinach, 1 cup of kale, and a whole bunch of like celery stalks like cut up in a salad, that'll be about 25 grams of net carbs. And it's still gonna leave you 25 more grams of net carbs to eat. So for example, if you wanna have 1 starch for the day, if you wanna have 1 sweet potato, you make it 15, 20 grams of net carbs a day, you can have that. But that's where your carbs should come from. See, a big mistake people make, and you know, I'm health coaching people all the time, and how I do it is that I look at their food diary constantly, and I'm saying, you know, okay, you did keep your carbs under 50 grams, but there were no nutrition. You picked bread. You decided to have like 1 bowl of pasta that day. You can't do it like that. You really want to have high fiber, high nutrition eating, a whole bunch of vegetables, then good quality sources of protein like I talked about, and eat an adequate amount of protein. And you are gonna do incredibly well eating a low carb diet. To me, is the best way to eat, to lose weight, and for optimal health. Now, if you want more of an exact detailed program, I'm also a believer in intermittent fasting. And I had a personal training client come to me a few months ago. You know, he just got his blood work back. You know, his cholesterol, you know, went really high. And I put him on like a 4-week low carb intermittent fasting program. We kind of timed when he ate his meal. We used food timing along with this low carb diet. He did incredibly well. And I mapped the whole thing out in this video. It's a 4-week low carb intermittent fasting program. You know, check this video out. I think you're going to find it really helpful.